Record. All right, welcome everybody to Summer Empowerment. This has been
Great.
such a fun week. We've done so many cool things. We've learned about disability history and advocacy. We've talked about changing your habits. We've done some live painting. And tonight I am so excited to be joined by my lovely friend Kim. Her and I share a couple things in common. Her and I recently, within the last couple of years, we moved out of state. So her and I both have disabilities. Um, and we have different stories, which is really great. So before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you to Kim for donating her time and her energy and being willing to share her experience with the rest of us. And I also want to thank the attendees for also giving us your time. We could not do these empowerment events without people like you who sign up and for keep the energy around these going. We've had Tanya all week just sharing the love. And we couldn't do this without you guys. So thank you not only to our speakers, but thank you to our attendees as well. So big thanks on that. And so tonight, Kim and I are going to be talking about moving. Like I said, she moved out of state and I also moved out of state recently. She went from Texas to California. I went from Wisconsin to North Carolina. So there's a lot of differences here. We have differences in our disabilities. We have differences in how we got there. So I'm super excited to hear her story. I'm excited to share my story, see what aligns with both of us, and then answer some questions because I know that the way that worked for me isn't going to work for everyone. So I'm excited to hear what worked for her. So without further ado, I am going to pass it on to our lovely friend Kim, and I will also start sharing our wonderful slide. So can everyone see the slide? I'm going to keep it, I think at presentation mode, do that, present. Got it. Actually, close this one down too. I don't know, we need that. Enter full screen mode. Okay. Can everyone still see me in the presentation and everything? Beautiful.
Yay, we got a yes from Gretchen. Hey, Gretchen.
Beautiful. All right, perfect. Well, without further ado, Kim, you are welcome to go ahead and take over. Now, you guys, I did say that her and I are sharing together. She had this beautiful presentation put together for us, and so I'm just gonna kind of piggyback off it. When she shares some stuff, I'll give some stuff too, and then I will, if it's cool with her, we'll send this out with the video and the link and everything. So go ahead,
Yeah,
Kim.
perfect. Perfect. Thank you. That was such a nice introduction, Brianna. Thank you. And I want to say before I get started, thank you for sharing your platform with me and inviting me to be a speaker. I'm honored to be here and to talk about this topic with you. So let's get into it, girl. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. Hi to everyone that's watching. My name's Kimberly Rose. And like Brianna said, we're going to talk about moving or relocating out of state. And so before I get started, I just want to do a quick little introduction, both of us, who are we? And I put on here some fun facts. So one thing about me, I love true crime. I'm a true crime junkie. Brianna, do you like true crime?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, right. I know. Like I love Dateline, 48 Hours Mystery, all of that stuff. I love what else? Tea. I love tea. So many health benefits, right?
Mhm.
Uh what else? Some other facts. I was born in Houston. I'm a Texas girl. And I just love the South. I'm a Texas girl at heart. And Halloween is my favorite time. Some other things about me. The reason why I moved to California was for work. So I'm a licensed and certified speech language pathologist, which mainly means that we work with people who have communication impairments, people all the way from infants to geriatrics, swallowing, communication problems. We will work with you. And then, like I said, I currently live in California.
Yay. So piggybacking, I was actually born in California, raised in Wisconsin. Also love true crime. Right now I am binging cold cases because that's what I love right now is the cold cases.
I
Um,
watch that too.
Halloween is my absolute favorite holiday. Every year I have at least 2 to 3 costumes because one is never enough.
You're
Um,
right.
Outside of running Wheel With Me Foundation, I also do some consulting work. So I travel for different businesses in the disability scene. My main job is traveling for a company called AMF Bruns of America, and they do restraint seating and flooring for adaptive vehicles. So if you guys get a vehicle from Driverge or Mobility Works or something along those lines, there is a very solid chance that my company helped outfit it with all of your accessible needs. So that is really cool. It's been a fun transition. I've never really worked in transit or with vehicles before, so this year has been a big learning experience for me. And I also moved for work. And so this lovely lady that's peeping in behind me is the founder of the nonprofit and my boss, and I uprooted my life to live with her. So that is why I moved.
Hello, thank you guys for joining Empowerment. We're so glad to have you.
Hi.
Yeah. Yeah, we're double dipping in the work today. So we're in the facility and doing cold plunges and hot saunas. So move on to the next one. Any questions about me or Kim at all for anyone? No? All right. Beautiful.
Okay, so the next slide. Before we get started and talk about the moving part, we got to talk about disability. So what exactly is our disability? So for me, I acquired my injury from a car accident, and when I was 18, so I'm 33 now. So that was almost 15 years. It'll be in September for me. And so for me, I have a C7 level spinal cord injury. And so now I'm considered a quadriplegic.
I was also in a motorcycle or motor vehicle accident. I was drinking and driving. I just passed over 13 years, and mine is in the thoracic level. So I'm a T10. So my injury is around my belly button. All right, next one. Oh, I love this. Ooh, yeah. You guys.
So this one, I put in a little fun activity. So where in the world are you? You could just drop in the chat box. Just where are you right now?
I'm gonna join it. Let me know right here.
Texas?
We got Texas.
And I need to put mine.
San Diego. I love that. I don't know if I ever told Gretchen that I was from San Diego. That's where I was born. And Bakersfield. Look at so many Cali people here today representing the West Coast. I'm here for it. And it's San Jose. So is San Jose above or below LA? It's above LA, isn't it?
Above, yeah.
Okay.
It's above, yeah. So it's the Bay Area. It's up there near San Francisco. Yeah.
Very cool. Welcome, everybody. Okay.
All right, so here we go, guys. So you want to move. Here are 6 things to consider. Now, obviously, there are way more things to consider, but when I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, here are some basic things that I truly had to think about before I moved. And so the first one was you have to be honest with yourself. So I put consider your needs, research where you're going, think about your budget, housing, where you're going to live, consider your social life, and then also just the disability in general as a whole. Like, what exactly do you need? Yeah,
I agree. And these are things that I wanted to share as well, because in my story, I didn't do a couple of these things. And that was my big learning experience, right? Like I really didn't research my location, what it had to offer, what kind of support systems it had. Because every area is going to be super different, right? Like when I lived in Wisconsin, we had a plethora of resources and programs to utilize. Then when I moved to North Carolina, I realized very quickly that it was not the case. It was not the case. So I did not do the research on my end. And that was a big learning curve. Once I moved, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's going to be easy for me to find rideshare. It's going to be easy for me to get back on food stamps because it was easy in Wisconsin. And that is not the case. I moved in 2022 and I didn't get on food share until the middle of last year. So it took over a year and a half to get on food share. And then when it came time to renew, I wasn't let back in, which was really strange. So,
can you tell me what's food share?
It's food stamps. So if you need help,
okay.
yep. So if you need help with food and stuff, so you get that little like your card or whatever. So you get monthly stipends for food.
Got it. We call it something different, I think, in Texas.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I got you. We say food stamps, so
Yeah,
okay,
food
food
stamps.
share. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So food stamps is in the, like something along the lines of food stamps, Medicare, Medicaid, all that stuff is different in every state. So if that is something that you really know that you're gonna need, definitely make sure that that resource is available and easy to access, because different states have different ways of applying for food share, of being able to renew. In Wisconsin, it took me 20 minutes to get on, and it took me maybe a half an hour every year after that to kind of reapply. It is not like that in this state. They don't do it. There's no online options. Like the actual technology in this state is completely different. And so be mindful of that kind of stuff, right? Because um in my county that I live in North Carolina, it does not actually have a lot of rideshare options. I have one rideshare option, and they only go to certain places on certain days and certain times. So now I can't just go to the doctor any day that I want. I have to go into the city on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, or to physical therapy on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but it has to be before 2 p.m.
Wow, so much
That's
to
a
think
huge,
about.
that's a huge thing. Like the driving is because like when I was in California, Uber has like Uber Wave.
Mhm.
And in Texas, if I want to get an Uber, I have to get the larger one so that I can fit my chair in it and get like the van and which is like, 3 times more expensive. Where in California I can do Uber Wave and it's a lot less expensive. So
Yeah.
it's stuff like that is huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And then
that's a good point, because I just discovered this year Uber Wave. I didn't know that they had the wheelchair accessible vehicles. And but I know that in Texas, it's only certain parts of Houston where that you can request the wheelchair accessible vehicles. So
Right.
for instance, if you're in the major cities, the major areas, they'll have it available. But where I live, more in the suburb area, it
They don't
wasn't
have it.
available. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
being mindful of that too. The options aren't available everywhere.
exactly.
Just knowing
Um,
that.
And because we are talking about public transportation and things, I do want to plug in that if you go to New York City or the New York City area, they actually have, because I was there recently for business, they have an accessible dispatch app. So you can actually get an accessible taxi through an accessible app, and it's for wheelchair users. I actually just learned about this, but I also learned in that state, if you are a new Uber driver, you have to get a vehicle that has a wheelchair lift on it. So because of them trying to keep the clutter off the road, that was one way of reducing too many Uber drivers a few years ago, was by making a requirement that all new Uber drivers and Lyft drivers need to have an accessible vehicle. So they are about 25 to 30% of taxis in the New York City area are wheelchair accessible, and they are going to keep that up until over 50% are wheelchair. So I just get regular Lyfts and Ubers when I travel, because my chair is like, small enough to toss in a trunk or whatever. I booked a regular Uber when I was in New York City, and lo and behold, a wheelchair van with a lift pulled up, and I was like, do I have to pay extra for this? Did I do this on purpose? I was so
Yeah.
confused. And then I learned through the grapevine, they're like, no, that's just a requirement nowadays, is that there's a lot of things. So be mindful of that kind of stuff when moving, right? Because if you're moving into a rural area of Texas, you don't even know if there's going to be Lyft or Ubers around. Like where I'm from in Wisconsin, we didn't even have Uber and Lyft in my hometown. And we still don't. So definitely look into that kind of stuff. Social though, I'm glad, Kim, that you put social on here, because that was a big transition for me. I had one person. I had my roommate, the girl that just popped in. That's all I had. And that's a lot of pressure for one person to have and to hold, to be your only person, right? So if you're cool with being an introvert or being alone, that's great. But if you do need that social aspect, look into somewhere that you already have those connections, or try to make those connections before you move. Look into those areas, join support groups, hit up the spinal cord injury groups, be like, hey, is there anyone in this area? Because that social piece, that did sneak up on me as well.
Same.
Anyone have any questions for this part, or for me and Kim, or anything so far? I've been trying to watch the chat, so okay, good.
Okay, so the first thing to consider is your needs. And so I put that in there because my first move that I did, it wasn't to California. It was for graduate school. I moved away to Virginia. So I moved from Texas to Virginia, and that was my first move, and I didn't have a car. I didn't even know how to drive at the time. And before I accepted that decision, or before I even made that decision to move over there, I had to be real with myself. And these are some things I had to ask myself. And I was like, am I able to afford this move? What will happen if I fall down? Who's going to help me? Can I even live away from support like family and friends? Do I have reliable transportation? Can I manage my daily tasks like cooking, cleaning, getting myself dressed? Can I even explain my disability to somebody if they're helping me? And I had to be real with myself. And my first move, I could cook, I could clean. I had lived independently, but my family was like 30 minutes away. And they would drive me everywhere and they would wash my clothes for me. And I had to be honest with myself. And so I said, okay, if I'm going to do this move, I have to find someone to drive me around. I have to figure out Uber. And so what I did was I found a caregiver business in the area, and I flew there. I met with them. I made arrangements. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. Then I had a plan B. I moved to care.com. And that's where you can find all kinds of caretakers to help you with things like laundry. They can drive you. They can help you get dressed. They can help you with your medication if you need that. And so having that plan is so important, because honestly, you can plan all you want to and things do not work out. That's what I learned with moving. I mean, things will not work out the way you think they will, and so you have to have a backup plan. But being really honest with yourself is key. And even driving, I had somebody that was driving me regularly, but then they weren't available. So I had to get comfortable with Uber on a daily basis. I took Uber twice a day for almost 2 years. It was very expensive, but I had to get comfortable with somebody new breaking my chair down constantly. I had to explain to them, but it made me uncomfortable. But if you have a goal in mind, you do what you have to do to make it happen. But I just feel like number one thing is be real with yourself and your needs.
Mhm. I agree. I think making a list of those needs, and maybe even, taking the time to like write out your daily schedule, your daily task list. Like, what does your day look like? And then break that down and figure out, what do I do on my own? What might I need help with? What are going to be the additional resources that I need for that? Because that was something I thought about too, Kim. Before moving out of Wisconsin, my mom was my caregiver. She got paid through the state to help me with my grocery shopping and things like that I couldn't do on my own. And then that was something that I knew before even leaving, that I was going to have to find someone else to help me with the errands and the shopping, because I wasn't going to put that all on my roommate. And so
Yeah.
I actually, knowing where I was going to be moving to, because where I live now is a little bit rural. It's not like I can take a bus or a cab into the store. And so I honestly just got an Instacart membership. So $10 a month, and I don't have to worry about getting a cab or asking someone else for help. And I can still be independent in getting my groceries or getting the things I need. So that was an adjustment that I had to make and kind of plan before I even left. Because I don't have a car right now still. I'm actually getting my permits. The last 2 years I've been just, doing it non-drive-in style, always doing ride share like I mentioned before and things like that. So definitely try to map out what it's going to look like when you leave, so that you can tentatively try to plan for things that might come on. Like Kim said, you can plan until your face turns blue and there's most likely things that are going to pop up. But if you take into account as much as you can beforehand, then those little bumps won't be as bad. So has anyone else moved? James or Tanya or Gretchen, have any of y'all moved from a different city, different state? Any of this kind of resonating with you guys?
I've lived in Texas. I mean, I've lived in Texas most of my life, so I've traveled a little bit, but I've lived in Texas most of my life.
Okay. What part of Texas?
I'm right outside of Houston in Cypress.
Cypress. Okay. Yeah, I'm familiar. Okay, nice. Okay, the next one, research. So I think this is very important. Researching the location where you're going. I put a quote in here, Benjamin Franklin: by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And it's so true. I think it's important to research the weather. What's the weather going to be like? Does it rain often? As wheelchair users or, individuals with disabilities, it's really tough to navigate through, bad storms. So it's just important to know what the weather looks like. Also searching the terrain. Is it hilly? Is it flat? What areas are flat? What's the best area to live in, that are most accessible? Even thinking about public transit. If you don't have your own transportation, thinking about how you would get around. And also just, I think researching the crime is important too. What's the crime rate? We're wheelchair users, we have to be safe and take care of ourselves. So I think that's really important too, to look at the crime.
I agree. Yeah, the crime stuff I actually never thought about, especially if you're going to be living right in that city. That's very smart, very smart. See, Kim's thinking about all the things that Bree was just like, I'm gonna move now. Bye.
No, this is not how I thought my first move. It was not like that. I was like so excited, and I made so many mistakes. But no, this is, my second move, and I mean, I've thought about a lot more, but no, trust me, this was not how the first move went. It was
I was gonna say, so a lot of the information that you're sharing was a lot of trial and error. So you kind of made these mistakes the first time and you're like, all right, now I know what we have
yeah,
to look for. And that's kind of how I relate to it too. Like I don't plan on moving out of state again anytime soon, but I will be moving into my new apartment next spring, hopefully, if I can, make it all line up and work out the way I want. But it's still, even just moving to a new part of town is going to be tricky, right? So it's nice to kind of have this skeleton of like what went wrong, because now I'm like, oh, now I can figure now we can just, bypass all of those barriers that we had before. So
for sure. And honestly, the reason why I kind of know some of this is because my family was so against me moving to California. They were like, "Oh, why are you gonna do another move? Just stay here. It's so expensive in California." I was like, "That's crazy." And I was gonna create a PowerPoint presentation to prove to them why, California is great. And so some of this stuff was on there. That's kind of why I kind of had it in mind. Fun fact. But yeah, that's why I had that. But it's true. I mean, really, I think it's important to think about the crime and just all of these things. Just keep that in mind when you're moving. Just it's important to just know where you're going. Every city's different.
especially if you're doing it alone, right? So me and Kim, our journeys have been single solo women on our own. It'd be different if, we had a partner, a roommate, or whatever, husband, to help us along the way. It'd be different. But especially if you're doing this on your own, look into that kind of stuff. Because we are more
Especially after watching all the state line.
especially after all the cold cases. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And if you are going to a place where you are, further away from the police, further away from help, look into self-protection tactics. If you're not a gun person, understandable, learn some self-defense, get some pepper spray things, learn, find ways to keep yourself safe. I think that's also really important when looking into moving, is feeling safe in that own space as well. Before we get into this one, Kim, did you ever notice that your transitions in your spaces took a little while because of like that safety feeling?
Because of safety, not necessarily. But I definitely am very aware of my surroundings. I try my best to watch the news. God, I'm trying as I get older to be more aware of what's happening in the world. But I really try my best not to go out too late by myself. I try to take those precautions, right? But I don't think it necessarily delayed my moving because of safety, but I definitely took it into consideration and wasn't moving anywhere that I didn't feel safe, right? So, for instance, one apartment I looked into, they had tons of homeless people around, and I was kind of a little concerned about that. And I would read reviews on websites, and people were saying there were break-ins all the time, or they're in. So I was like, okay, no, maybe not this place, or maybe they were stealing packages. And I have medical supplies delivered monthly, so I'm like, okay, that's going to be a problem. I don't want to stay somewhere where they're stealing things. So that definitely, it may have taken a little bit more time with choosing an apartment because of that, for instance. But no, I just try to look into everything and take all the precautions I can. Right. What about you?
I didn't really think about it either. I wasn't super worried. I had been to prior to moving in with Jessie and her family, I had came and stayed like a week and a half before. So like I had seen the house, the property. We were kind of outside of the city, so I felt really comfortable. It had a very similar vibe from what I had in Wisconsin. So honestly, I think being that really helped. Honestly, the whole, like, what's the word I'm looking for? The whole like landscaping, like all the trees and like the actual outside, all of nature looks very similar here in North Carolina to what it looked like in Wisconsin. So like home alone in the backyard, it feels like I'm home alone in Wisconsin, if that makes sense.
No, definitely.
It wasn't
Mhm.
like I was like living in a city and then went into the middle of the woods or vice versa. That big culture shock change for the environment, I think would have played a huge difference. But being the fact that I went from a very woodsy area in Wisconsin to a very woodsy area here, I think that really helped the transition. But then
Mhm.
as I kind of got to know the area and got to know Charlotte, and I did hear more about the violence growing in Charlotte, I think it took about a year and a half before I was finally like, okay, I am home alone a lot, and I do think I want to start looking into some kind of protection, whether that be a handgun or self like training. I wanted to look into like actual training classes. So that was something that kind of came to me after the fact, right? Like so I was really safe in the beginning, but then once I got to know the area and like you said, started watching the news a little more, I'm like, ooh, maybe I should have a little more protection. And the family actually invested in like cameras and stuff too after I moved in. So
Mhm.
that was a cool thing. And
It's
when you're
good.
moving, they have, I think the coolest thing nowadays is that they have those like portable security systems, right? Like you don't need to live in a house per se to
Right.
get cameras put in. You can get the little ring cameras. You can put that right on your apartment door and stuff. So
Mhm.
that's what I really
That's
love about this day and age. I don't know if you have anything like that in your space, Kim, but I know that when I move out of the place that I'm in now, that I will also have some kind of security system right on my front door. Because if your packages do get stolen, you have to have a camera for you to report it.
exactly. No, that's good. No, I don't have any cameras. I've looked into it over the years. I guess I'm just stubborn and just one of those people where it has to happen for me to actually make some changes. But no, I know about that, and that's good that you have that implemented into your space. That's so smart. Yeah. Okay, budget. Let's talk about budget. It's not a dirty word, guys. It's good, actually. It's great. So budgeting. So when you're moving, there's a lot of things you're gonna spend money on, and that being moving supplies like boxes and packing up all of your things, movers. You got to pay these people. If you don't have the manpower, trust me, you have your friends, but they really don't want to spend a Saturday packing up boxes. I mean, they love you, but they don't want to do that. So you may have to pay movers to help. You may have to get a moving truck, consider gas. Are you going to drive to your new city or your new state? That's a cost. Also, food, you got to eat on the road. So that's a cost as well. And then think about the maintenance. If you have your own vehicle, think about the maintenance. When I moved to California, I spent so much money, guys. Like, you don't even know how much money I spent. Even just having a vehicle, I almost didn't even want to take a car because I had to get the new tires, I had to get oil change, I had to get what else? It was so many things I had to get. Like, I think a new engine. I'm like, what else is going on? And to be honest, like full disclosure, I actually had to take out a second credit card for my move, and I ended up maxing that out because it was so much money I was spending. I really felt defeated coming to California because I spent so much money getting here because I had to quit my full-time job I was working at in order to move here. And it was a little bit of a delay with starting my new job. And so I was in between jobs, still spending all of this money, and the income wasn't there, but I'm spending money. So that equates to debt, right? And so I'm going into debt making this move. And so it was kind of disheartening for a little bit for me. I'm not going to lie. And so I just want you guys to be aware of these. I'm not trying to scare any of you all, but just be aware that it's going to be a little costly, very costly to move. But, like I said, if you plan it correctly, it'll work out. But just be aware of these things. Bree, what about you? What were the costs like for you?
So with Kim having her own vehicle and doing the moving and all the trucks and everything, her budget looked a little bit different than mine. And so I did not have a car at the time. I still don't. I do actually. I do have a car. It's in Wisconsin, but it's working its way here. So we're gonna pretend like I don't have a car still, which because I don't. So when I moved, I had to figure out, right, how am I gonna get my entire 1-bedroom apartment to North Carolina? And so I looked into moving trucks. I had looked into all of the options. And what it came down to for me is that my mom worked at a factory, and so she got a discount with shipping. And I literally just I got rid of everything I possibly could that I did not necessarily need. I got rid of my DVD collection. I got rid of half of my clothes. I got rid of anything I did not absolutely need to go with me. And then I mailed all of my boxes to North Carolina. I shipped like 20, 25 boxes to North Carolina.
Wow.
Because it was,
Okay.
in the long run, that was the most affordable way for me, right? So instead of buying the truck and having to get a hotel room on the way and do all the things for like a road trip style move, I was like, what if I just mail it all and just use all of that cost to ship everything and then take that little bit of extra money and buy a plane ticket. And so that's kind of how I approached it. Because I didn't have a vehicle and because I did get rid of so much stuff, I
Yeah.
shipped all my boxes, I got me a one-way ticket, and that's how I was able to do it.
Nice.
I also
Okay.
did have a little nest egg because I had just graduated college. So I had some graduation money that I had put away for the move. So like once I got here, I'm like, okay, well, if I need to get, garbage cans for my bedroom or tampons or little things, like I left everything behind. All my cleaning supplies, most of like my non-emergent, like just regular medical stuff, not my like catheters or anything, but like I said, tampons, wipes, all that I left behind. I'm not taking anything that I can't get there, or that I
Mhm.
can get there is essentially what I was thinking. And
Yeah,
um,
that's good.
so I had a little bit of a budget set away for savings so that I could get, food once I was there. I could get more towels. I could do a couple things. Um,
Yeah.
and that worked out really well for me, specifically because of me not having a car, and I didn't have to worry about movers. The mail people brought the boxes right to the front porch, and then her parents put them right from the front porch into my empty bedroom. So
Nice. That's good.
yeah, and there's other ways too. You can look into, I know that you can ship your stuff through Greyhound. That's also an option. Like Greyhound bus will take extra packages to different locations. You can also do that with airplanes. Certain airlines will take your stuff. My boyfriend works for Delta, and we had talked about we're moving him to North Carolina this upcoming spring, and he was even saying how you can like, send extra stuff on the airplanes, which I never knew. So research that. Research what's going to work best for you. If
Mhm.
it's a similar story like me, you just got a person and a handful of boxes, maybe a plane is the best. But if you're more like him and you have that car and other things that you need to get from point A to point B, then the drive is obviously the best way to go. So I think that's kind of my experience in terms of budgeting and the actual travel piece. So
Yeah. And I also will add too, it's important to consider cutting costs where you can as well. If you have your goal in mind, if your goal is to move by a certain date, cutting costs is important. And I say that when I say that, I mean maybe not going out with friends every weekend,
mm,
maybe not eating out as much,
mhm.
maybe not buying that dress or those shoes that you have been looking at, sacrificing a little bit. I had to do that when I was in between jobs and I was moving and trying to save up all this money. I had to tell friends, hey, I can't hang out this weekend. I can't go to this event. I couldn't hang out with individual friends. I was like, let's collectively hang out or let's cook. Let's come over to
Mhm.
my place and we'll cook instead of eating out. And so you find ways to still have fun, but
Yeah.
on a budget, because you have your goal in mind, right? Your goal is to move. You want to experience that new place, but you have to just save a little bit more money and pull back in certain areas. So I think that's something also to think about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd second that for sure.
All right, let's talk about housing. Where are you going to live? All right, so my first move, both moves, I have roommates, right? So my first one, I lived in an apartment. I had a roommate. Same here. I have a roommate as well. And I felt like that was important because for the social reasons, but also I saved money that way as well. And I thought that that was really key. How I found my roommates was online, the internet. I didn't know either one of them ahead of time. And luckily, it worked out. We were talking about true crime earlier. I'm still alive. So it worked out. Many people were like, God, you found your roommate online? That's so
Were
crazy. But
were you nervous searching for a roommate online? Not just because you're disabled, but just being like a woman in general. Like, were you kind of just like, oh, I don't know how I'm gonna like, did you ever have any hesitation with that? Or were you just kind of like, this is just part of life and I'm just gonna find what I need to find?
I feel like true crime has given me my investigation skills a little bit. So I do a deep dive into, people's, accounts, who they are. I look at things. And also the roommate that I have now, I came to California and I met with her. She lived in the apartment before me for about a year. So she gave me a tour of everything. I wanted to see if the vibe was there between us, and it was. We
Sure.
clicked instantly, and I was like, oh yeah, girl, we're going to be fine. So there's that part of it. But I feel like with housing, it's important that you do a tour in person, preferably. But if you can't be in person, then virtual is good. I've done a tour where they have literally took their phone with them. And I'm like, okay, pause. Let me see that threshold. Let me see if that door is wide enough. Hold on, hold the camera. Let me see if, I have to check everything, because if I can't be there in person, then
Yeah.
I need to see it all virtually. So I feel like doing a tour is major key. I also feel like you need to ask about the accessibility around the apartment. Think about the proximity where your housing will be to your job, if you're going to be having a job there, or stores like medical supply stores or grocery stores. Think about the proximity. Where I live now, it's about 20 minutes from my job. But when I first moved here, I have a different job now. But when I first moved here, I was about 20 minutes. And that was a decent amount drive to me. Like, I felt like that was okay for me to drive 20 minutes. I was okay with that. And so you have to think about the proximity of where you're living. And I also think it's important to think about if you want to live alone or if you want to live with someone. And that's important too. As a person with a disability, my first experience living with somebody that wasn't disabled, I was nervous because I was like, oh, I have these catheters. Sometimes it might smell. Sometimes I do a bowel program. And we had real conversations. And, sometimes she'd tell me, hey, can you take the trash out? It kind of stinks. I kind of smell something, and we had conversations, and that got me actually more comfortable sharing, my disability with others, being with non-disabled people. It got me more comfortable. But you have those conversations if you choose to have a roommate. So I think that's important. Things to just think about when you're considering housing. What about you?
I agree. So with my situation, like I mentioned, I was really lucky to where I did get to come and stay at the house before moving in. So I got to check out the space. Like I said, Jesse and I stayed together for a week, and that was kind of the point. Like she had said, you want to make sure that they vibe well, right? So Jesse and I, we had been friends online and virtually for 6, 7, 8 months prior, but we were like, well, what if we don't vibe in person? So that's why I planned the trip out there, spent a week. And we hit it off. It was peanut butter jelly, and so once I knew that the space was really good and that my roommate was going to be great, I was fine for everything else. Definitely consider the proximity of things, and that's something that I had done. So knowing that I couldn't just roll to a convenience store or roll to a gas station and get a couple things that I need, that is when I started looking at to like the Instacart. And so, like I made that adjustment. So I am further away from things that I need, but I still have access to a delivery service. So that's what I'm gonna do for that. And that worked for me. It doesn't work for everyone, which is totally fine. But definitely try to meet with your roommate beforehand. I love my roommate, and her and I vibe so well that I don't think I'm ever gonna want another roommate again, which is
Oh, that's so
which is
good.
awful because I'm about to move in with my boyfriend, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I want to live
It's
with
not good for romance, I guess.
I know. But if I wasn't moving in with my boyfriend, or if it wasn't Jesse, I would prefer to be alone at this stage in my life. And her and I have talked about that. And it's like, if it wasn't for you, I would be alone. I'd be alone for sure. And so make sure that you have those conversations. And if you can change. You can be a social person one year, and then it can kind of be where you move into a season where you just need a little more space. You just need to communicate that, whether that means moving out or just like scheduling time alone. Definitely be okay that it changes. I love my roommate now, but I think I am very much ready to have my own space for a few weeks once I move
Yeah.
out. Yep.
That's important.
I even told Jake, I was like, is it okay if I just have the apartment alone for a couple weeks before you move in? He's like, no, baby, I'm not offended. You have your alone time. You.
Yeah, I
So
know. I find
good.
myself missing that too. But I would say also, I'm sorry, keep
I was
going,
just gonna
Brianna.
say, I was just gonna say communicate that, right? So, whether if you do need a roommate for financial reasons, say, hey, I am kind of an introvert. I kind of like my own space. Or Wednesday is American Horror Story night. Do not come and bother me after 10 p.m., right? Like just to have those conversations, communicate openly and having those boundaries. And I think that is why it's worked so well with Jesse and I, is that from day one, she's been very adamant about what she needs, what her boundaries are. I've been the same with mine, and we've found a really good way to mesh that together.
I love that. That's really good. No. And I was just gonna say about the roommate situation. I think some people, because I've had comments by people and they're like, "Oh, you have a roommate? So that means like she must really help you with everything." And I don't want people to think that. If you're getting a roommate thinking they're gonna be your caregiver, you're gonna be disappointed.
Yep.
I will tell you, my roommate's close by. She helps me, but she is not my caregiver. And I mean, she's a very nice person, but I would never rely on her for that. She, every now and then, if I drop something or if I can't reach something, she's there. But to just solely rely on somebody else, thinking that, oh, we live together, they're just going to take care of me. I don't want someone to move into a space with somebody with that mindset, because I don't think, I think they'll be disappointed, very
Yeah.
disappointed. But
A pressure that they don't deserve, right? They're not moving in to
right.
take care of you. They just want to move in to have a buddy.
Right. Right. Can we be homegirls? Can we hang out? But also, it made me think about one more thing. When I moved to Virginia and I said I didn't have a car, one thing that I thought about was getting around to places. And so where I moved, it was in a town center, and it was surrounded by restaurants. There was a movie theater. It was a gym. It was bars and all these different places and all these shopping stores. And so I loved it. I really hated to leave there because it was so perfect. I could push everywhere. And so think about that too. Like we said with proximity, consider that. Now I have a vehicle, but sometimes I don't want to drive.
Right.
And when I moved back to Texas, I'm like, okay, well, when I move there, I'm going to consider somewhere like in a town center that's close by, places, things to do and places to shop, because, who wants to just drive all the time? Breaking that chair down gets old real fast all the time. So just something to consider when you're searching for housing.
I agree.
Okay. Social life. Okay. Whew, breathe with me, guys. You can make friends out of state, but it's a task. Okay. It is a task. And for me, getting a roommate was helpful because my roommate is a big social butterfly. She's always out and about and inviting me places, which is nice. But if you don't have a roommate and you're doing it on your own, I would say start with Meetup. I don't know if you're familiar with Meetup, but it's an app that you can download. And the purpose of it is not to date people, but to just find like-minded individuals. If you like movies, if you like reading, if you like painting, if you like going out, there's people on there. There's a group on there for everything. Bumble BFF is good too. I've used it in different states that I've lived in, and I've made friends on there. I wouldn't say I haven't made, friends for life, but I definitely have made some really cool connections on there. And so I would say try Bumble BFF. Social media is great too. Reach out to people online. If you follow people that maybe in a nearby city or in the same city, reach out and be like, hey, do you want to grab a drink? Do you want to? I've had people reach out to me that live in the Bay Area, and they're like, oh my God, you live out here? Let's hang. Also, disability groups. Think about that. They have spinal cord injury groups out here. That's a good way to connect with people and find out, hey, where can I go if I have wheelchair issues? Where can I go if I need medical supplies? And they are like the plug. They will tell you things that you may not know. And so I think that's a good way to socialize and, meet new people.
I agree. I agree. I definitely think reaching out to your local like groups, and like different towns have different community groups too, like, right? Like we have the Denver Town Talks group on Facebook here, right? So it doesn't even have to be disability like specific if you don't want it to be, right? Like if you just want to find just any kind of gym buddy, usually a lot of these different communities have Facebook groups. Ours is called the Denver Town Talk. So if you're just like, hey, I just moved here, this is my interest and whatever. So check out the Facebook groups and stuff like that too. So there's a lot of different ways that you can connect with people.
Yeah.
The gym and sports thing is really, really great as well. I cannot wait to get my Planet Fitness membership and start meeting
Yeah.
friends.
That's a good way. That's a good
I
starting
know.
point. That's a good starting. There's like fitness groups you can join, and just talk with people, even if it's not adaptive. If you see people weekly at the gym, you suddenly build this bond. We're all trying to work out and, get stronger and better together. So that's a good way. But also, don't be afraid to go out by yourself. Okay. I do that often. And if you're interested in making friends, that's one way to do it. But if you're interested in maybe finding a man or a woman, that's another way too. I'm just saying. But go out by yourself. Go sit down, eat, have a drink, read a book. That's okay too. That's another way to meet people. Okay. Last but not least, think about your disabled needs, okay? What necessities are you going to need? So, for instance, if you have issues with your wheelchair, think about repair shops. So, finding a medical supply place as well. I have run out of catheters. I can't tell you how many times I have run out, and I've called the catheter companies and they're like, sorry, you got to wait, until your next order. And I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do? It actually happened in California a few months ago, and I was panicking. And I found a medical supply store that was about an hour away. And I went there and they sold not the exact catheters that I use, but they had some catheters. And so I was so happy. But knowing, the medical supply stores nearby. Also, one time I traveled and I forgot my sliding board. And when I arrived to the city, I was like, crap. So I suddenly had to Google real quickly and find a medical supply store. And luckily they had sliding boards. So just, being aware of stores nearby. Does the city that you have in have medical supplies? Also knowing repair shops nearby. Oh my goodness, my brakes. There's a problem with my brakes. What am I gonna do? Before I moved into this apartment, I did that. I looked up where is, so I use National Seating and Mobility, and they are 15 minutes away. I looked up adaptive driving because I need sometimes maintenance on my hand controls. They are 25 minutes away. I looked up gas stations with an attendant who will pump my gas for me. 20 minutes away. I had that all in place. I had a whole list. Check, check, check. You need to do those things.
Yes.
What else do I have on the list? Locate, adaptive driving. Oh, change your address. That's key too.
Mm-mm.
So wherever you're moving to, make sure your medical supply company knows so they can send you your medical supplies where you're going. So just boxes to check.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think medical supplies, wheelchair, doctors, caregivers. And we had already touched, I mean, these are all disability things specific, but yeah, I mean, the only thing outside of this I can think of is food. So yeah, this is great. Or if you're I guess it would be kind of covered under the local doctors and clinics, but if you are like really pushing hard for some kind of physical therapy goals, make sure that you can find someone that can help you in that area, right? Like, so I got really lucky that there is a really good spinal cord injury therapist center here in Charlotte. But that's not everywhere. So if you really are like, if you're working on like leg braces or you're working on your floor transfer, if there's something like really specific that you're working on, research to make sure that that doctor or that team is going to be able to help you. Because in Wisconsin, I had just it was not spinal cord injury specific at all. And so trying to have them teach me certain things was a little tricky because they just never had the experience with that. When I moved from like my hometown to my college town, that's what I kind of ran into. I noticed that bigger city, even though it was bigger and it had a good hospital system and good physical therapists, they just still weren't specific enough for the goals that I had wanted to get back into the system for, right? Like, so before moving, I wanted to be able to learn to transfer without my board. I wanted to be able to get in and out of a car or do like uneven transfers and things like that. And so when I went back into therapy for that, they had to do a lot of research prior to helping me to be able to teach me, right? Because a lot of their experiences was stroke, car accident, or just regular injuries, not necessarily something like you and I where they actually have a physical disability. So do be mindful of that as well. If you have goals that you're working on with your providers, maybe even reach out to them, be like, hey, I'm kind of looking into moving into the Houston area. Do you know of another doctor that can help me with this spinal cord injury specific goal
Yeah.
I'm working on, right? So do that before you leave. See, because all these doctors, they have that network of connections and they have out of state resources that they can most likely help you with. That'd be the only other thing though that I would think about, just making sure that you have that additional support.
Yeah. You see, the common theme here is research, guys.
Mhm.
Research. You got to. It's important. Don't overlook it.
Yes. It's worth all the time. Worth all the time.
And I put, okay, so I love Maya Angelou. She's just one of my favorite poets. And so I put this keep in mind in here. And so she said, I learned a long time ago, the wisest thing I can do is be on my own side. And when I read that, it made me think of, they're gonna have doubters. You're gonna have people that are like, why are you moving? You're disabled. What are you thinking? You can't do it. Like, you're just gonna have naysayers, and not necessarily because like they're haters, but like they have never seen it done, right? But like, because you prepared, because you've planned, you're going to be able to do this. And I feel like just don't, like, you have to tune those people out. You have to, and focus on your goals. If you feel like you can do it, if you think that, I can achieve this goal, do it. And you just have to block them out. So just be on your own side and trust your gut.
When I think you shared this a little bit earlier, Kim, but when you were moving and planning, did your family have their own reservations? Were they kind of nervous for you? I know when I told my mom that I was moving out of state, she was not ready. She did not support it in the beginning. She was more anxious than I was. She panicked more than I did. And kind of like Kim was just saying, I was like, you know what? I don't need your doubts and insecurities kind of diminishing what I'm doing right now. So I just gotta have faith in me. I'm gonna figure it out. It may be hard. I may be leaving my support behind. I may, fall on my face for a little while, but I have to do it for me. And that's kind of what it came down to, is I had to, like Kim said, just shut out their ideas and their insecurities and just we'll send it.
You have to. And for me, for a long time, it's like I needed validation. I needed somebody to tell me, you're doing great, do it, and it's like you can't look for that, because there are gonna be people there that are just not gonna believe in what you want to do. And as long as you believe and trust in yourself, and that's all that matters. I mean, there's gonna be people out there. I mean, we're disabled, a lot of people think that like we can't do a lot of things, right? And so moving is probably like something that even non-disabled people probably just don't even do, because it's hard. There's a lot that goes into it. It's tough. But like I said, you gotta like tune them out and focus on you. You may cry, wipe those tears, and keep going. You just gotta trust yourself and what you can do. And if it doesn't work out, okay, just try again. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Go back to the drawing board.
That's what I kept saying. I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? I come home. Oh wow. But at least I tried, right? If you guys are thinking about it or on the fence about it, or if you've been playing around with the idea for a long time, what's holding you back? What's holding you back? Is it other people's ideas or is it yours? Because I'm telling you, I don't know if Kim feels the same way, but moving out of state and just taking that leap was one of the best things I could have done for myself. Was it hard and challenging? Absolutely. Did I cry a lot the first year? Absolutely. But I am such a different person now, and I am so much more independent, and I have learned so much. I don't regret it for a second, not 1 second.
Same. You just learn so much about yourself. I feel like it builds your resilience, your problem solving skills. I mean, so many things go wrong on a daily basis, and I used to just crumble, and it would just affect my whole day. And I'm like, okay, what are we gonna do? I'm not crying about it. We're gonna figure this out. It's just one of those. The bounce back game is just so much faster. When you do things that are hard and scary, and you achieve it, and you're like, okay, what's next? I got through it.
I love
Yeah.
that. Oh, and then one thing we did miss in the chat, Gretchen talked about how she loves her local book clubs. I love that. I am now gonna look into local book clubs because that is so cool.
That was good, Gretchen. That was very good. I forgot to add that one. Very good advice.
And Gretchen, if you ever have questions after this, reach out anytime. I know my Instagram is out there, and I'll attach me and Kim's Instagram to the video that I send out later on tonight. But if you guys have questions for me and Kim, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm sure she wouldn't mind if you snuck into her DMs, and I wouldn't mind if you asked anything for me. So, but we do have like 1 minute left or so. Is there any other questions that you guys had about moving? Kim or her story, me or my story, anything at all? I'm just gonna go on the record saying I think we're both open books here. We're not really shy of anything. So you're welcome to ask me whatever.
This has been great though. Thank you.
Yes. I'm glad you guys found the information useful, truly. I really do.
Oh gosh, this was so useful to me as well. Just thinking about like just knowing I have to move in a few months. Like, oh yeah, I should probably keep looking into how close I am from a grocery store and things like that. And that's great.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
well, if there is, stop the share. Share there. If there is no additional questions for me and Kim, I will be cool to wrap this up. So thank you guys so much for an amazing empowerment week. This whole week has been fantastic. Before you guys go, if you want to drop in the chat what you guys loved about tonight and the rest of the week. What's your favorite thing about me and Kim? And what was your other favorite thing about the week in general? While I say my thank you. So go ahead and toss something in the chat. But while you do that, I just want to say thank you to Kim again for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your experience, share your story, to give us so many amazing tips. Thank you, attendees. Like I said, we could not be doing this without you guys. It is you guys that keep coming back, that keeps us doing this. Our whole empowerment program is all based on peer education, peer support, and independence. And you guys literally bring that to the table every single week that we do this. So thank you guys so much. We do our best to keep our events free. And so with that, I mean, you guys are welcome to donate to our PayPal, or we have a merch line online. I can drop that in the email as well. That's another way that you can support our mission, is just by, giving us a small donation, checking out our merch, things like that. Otherwise, we like to keep these free. We want to empower the community. We want to share this information and do anything we can to help your independence grow. So that is a big part of our mission. Yeah, like Gretchen said, 10 years in, learning so much from peers, you got to stay curious. You got to be willing to put yourself out there. So thanks, Gretchen, for coming and being active all week. Thank you, Maddie, for joining in late. Whatever you missed, we will have this recording sent to your email. Amazing week. We'll be doing this one more time this year. So if you guys want to mark your calendar now, the first week of November will be our fall empowerment. We have some fun stuff in that one. I think we have Nikki Walsh at Fit coming in. We have another DJ night. If you guys are here in the spring and did our little dance one, we're bringing that back, which is a really fun time. And then we have some other cool things lined up as well. So thank you guys again so much. I hope you guys learned something. If you guys enjoyed this, feel free to pass it along to a friend. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, attendees. And just have an amazing weekend.
Yes. Have an amazing weekend, guys. And also, if you want to follow me online, if you don't, my Instagram it's Kimberley Rose, Ley. Don't forget the E. And then you can email me. And it's on the slideshow, and then I have YouTube as well. So it's on the slide. If you want to share the PowerPoint, you're more than welcome. I can also share it. If you guys DM me, I can email it to you guys. So thank you so much, Brianna, for having me.
No
It's been so great.
problem. Yes, I will attach her slides to the email and a link to her Instagram. I'll also toss mine in there too, just to be safe. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Kim. I hope you guys all have a beautiful weekend.
Yes, you
And I'll
too.
see
Bye,
you guys all in
everybody.
November.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.